All right, let's clear some of the chatter here. Iran is a bad actor. It's inimical to the United States. It's a bad actor in the region, period. For a long time, this general that America took out was considered a terrorist for good reason. The question is, was this done the right way? And does that matter going forward? Congressman Dan Crenshaw knows the importance of clear intel, and he knows the reality of war in the region. Okay? He is a veteran who served with honor. The Republican from Texas joins us now. Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year, Chris. Thanks for having me.
It's good to have you. I wish I had you on for better reason. But in truth, you know what? This matters. This is good reason. Thank you for making the time. You heard me off the top. There is no discussion about whether Iran is inimical to the cause, is a danger to America, nor with this individual. My question is about process here, especially as someone who has to pay the price in the past for political decisions, right? You were a fighting man. Or do you have any concerns about the president and the people around him doing this the way they did without Congress on the basis they've provided so far?
Yeah, well, that's an important question to ask. I certainly don't deny that. But upon looking at the facts and being in the briefings I've been in, yes, I do believe it was the right decision, and I think they made it as well as they could. Okay, we have to look at this in context, in the context of history and the escalation in violence that has occurred against the United States over the past few years. So even as the Iran deal was getting signed, the Iranians were embarrassing U.S. Navy sailors by capturing them, boarding their vessel, and putting those pictures all over the internet. Then we move into putting limpet mines on oil tankers, bombing Saudi oil facilities, downing a U.S. drone, rocket attacks on our bases.
Exporting and funding terror, helping Hezbollah, helping screw with Yemen, doing stuff in Syria, even feeding into the North African problems. All true. My question to you is, that also informs us that this was a long-standing thing that marries to the idea that the Secretary of State reportedly was working the president on this for a long time. That does not suggest imminency.
No, but it was imminency, but it also culminated into an attacks that killed an American citizen.
Yes.
And then orchestrated an attack against a U.S. embassy. So the escalation had occurred, and then there was good intelligence that showed that it was going to continue to escalate, and that escalation ladder needed to be disrupted. So when I hear somebody like General Milley and the CIA director and the DNI director say that this is some of the best, clearest intelligence that they have seen, I think we should take that into account and believe what they're saying.
Well, we would believe it more quickly, by the way, if we hadn't had a president for 2.5 years pounding on us that you can't trust U.S. intel. But let's take your point, because I want people to trust intel, but I want them to trust but verify. We should have proof. That's the media's job. Senator Mike Lee had a different take. Republican, Utah, not set up to be against the president for no reason. Here's what he said.
Drive-by notification or after-the-fact lame briefings like the one we just received aren't adequate. Every time we got close, they'd say, well, we can't discuss that here because it's really sensitive. We're in a skiff. We're in a secure underground bunker where all electronic devices have to be checked at the door, and they still refuse to tell us.
Rand Paul went on to say they couldn't give me the details, they couldn't give me the proof of imminency, that they had to do it now. They're relying on an AUMF that has no bearing to what's going on right now. I blame Congress for that, not the executive branch, by the way. But why does this senator come to, or two senators come to such a different conclusion than you?
Yeah, well, first of all, the 2002 AUMF is sort of an added justification. It's meant to demonstrate that the attack happened in Iraq and the counterattack happened in Iraq. We already have an operational presence in Iraq. The real justification is Article 2 of the Constitution and the War Powers Resolution, which clearly states that the president can take immediate action to protect U.S. forces, especially when we just had two significant attacks on U.S. forces.
But then why was Pompeo working him for so long to do this? And why wasn't it worth bringing in Congress and trying to get people like you into the leadership position who have such expertise to talk about whether it's right the way they're doing it? Because really, this is your job in Congress.
I'm not aware of Secretary Pompeo's conversations with the president. But the other part about the intelligence that Senator Lee was complaining about is Listen, I understand it, I do, but having come from the world of intelligence, I also understand that these are extremely sensitive sources and methods.
Yes.
And when you say what you know, you by nature are revealing how you got it. And that is of extreme concern, especially if we're still getting that intelligence. And, and I don't think it's out of the question to say, or out of bounds to say, that the director of the CIA is not sure whether these members of Congress will go out and say what they're saying. The easiest thing in the world, by the way, is just to know that say the CIA and the DNI can't reveal those intelligence sources, and then go say, well, we don't believe it.
I hear you, but again, these aren't Democrats; they're Republicans. So It's not like it's a political play. The Gang of Eight wasn't even talked to before this happened, which is a mechanism that's in place for a reason. The president, who has said again and again, I'm not blaming you for this, Dan, I'm bringing you on to talk reason to it. He has said so many times, U.S. intel can be deep state nonsense. Confidential sources and classified, forget it. Declassify it all. It should all be out there so you know. Now, he doesn't want to do that. Now, he's told the American people nothing. Why should we believe it was such a clear case?
Well, because we have so many, again, we have General Milley, we have the director of the CIA, director of the DNI, saying the same things as well. So, the valid criticisms, you can make a valid critique that members of Congress could have been notified, at least as the strike was happening. But that doesn't take away from the overall picture here, which is that this is a good thing. It's a good strategic decision.
It was a good tactical decision.
See, and strategic decision. I would
why?
say
Because they say
decision.
But they haven't
based on the last
articulated a
24
strategy.
hours.
But they haven't articulated a strategy yet. And in fact, the president said he didn't need one.
I'll articulate a strategy right now, which is we are the United States of America, and when people attack us, we can't not respond. We have to respond, and we have to disrupt the escalation ladder. What's happened in the last 24 hours is I believe that has happened. I believe we have restored deterrence in an effective way. Because
How do you know?
Because you look at the type of attack that happened last night. You look at the indications that the Iranians actually let the Iraqis know beforehand, so that we're completely prepared for it, so that there would be no casualties. The Iranians can tell their people that they did this great thing where they took out Americans. In reality, that didn't happen, and we don't have to escalate it anymore.
You think it's over?
Has occurred.
You think it's over? You think there was an off-ramp?
There was definitely an off-ramp. Now, as far as the long-term skirmishes with surrogate forces, say, Shia militias, I think smaller things like that will happen. But we had clear indications that the Iranians wanted to escalate this dramatically. Okay, and that is fundamentally true.
And you don't think that'll happen
and that
now?
Is stopped. No, it's already stopped as it appears right now. It
appears right now. It's been a day, Dan. How do you know what's going to happen a week from now? What will they do with their proxies?
Of course I can't know what's going to happen.
Then why would you say it with certainty that it stopped?
Of course I can't know what's going to happen a week from now, but it certainly appears that way based on all of the information we have now, based on what the Iranians have said, with the Iranian foreign minister and what he tweeted out.
Secretary Pompeo says he's a liar and can't be believed.
Yeah, well, as of before, the Iranians were committing attacks where they actually took credibility. You have to understand how different that is from years past, where they used surrogates and they tried to make their role in it unattributable.
Understood.
Okay? And that changed recently.
Understood.
That changed recently, and now they're walking that back. They're in a much weaker position, and the president has outlined exactly what his red lines are, and more importantly than that, the light at the end of the tunnel. Wants to renegotiate the JCPOA, go back to the table. He's setting out a path for peace, but he's also set out red lines and deterrence, whereas before we never had that. And that is really important to note, and I think there is more reason to be hopeful than there was before.
Well, listen, I'm all about being hopeful. I don't want to see any escalation. I'll be very clear. I am biased here. I don't want to see men and women like you fighting fights for political decisions that may not make the most sense. I'm all about keeping it about talking. He set red lines. Iran crossed it. Thankfully, that didn't trigger any further action. He wants to go to the table. Every expert says this made going to the table less likely. But Dan Crenshaw, I'm with you. I hope this cools it down. I hope this allows for more. I just hope that people like you in Congress fight for your right to have a part in decision-making processes that may lead to war and the sacrifice of blood. Forget about treasure. So thank you for being with us.